In the chaos of the Second World War, when the world seemed to be coming apart at the seams, one of the most remarkable engineering feats wasn't a tank, a plane, or a weapon. It was a hut, a small, curved, unassuming structure made of corrugated steel and bolts, a building so simple it could be shipped across the ocean, dropped on a beach and built by soldiers who had never held a blueprint in their lives. This is the story of the Quonset hut, the little half-moon shelter that helped win the war, and went on to house generations that followed. When Japan attacked Pearl Harbor in December of 1941, America was thrust headfirst into a global conflict. Within months, hundreds of thousands of troops were scattered across the Pacific, islands drenched in rain, choked by jungle and scorched by tropical heat. The U.S. military quickly realized something. Tents, those trusty, canvas army tents, weren't going to survive this war. Canvas rotted in the humidity, wooden poles snapped in the wind, and termites, well, they ate through anything that wasn't steel. The soldiers needed a home, not luxury, not comfort, just a dry, strong roof over their heads. Something that could be built fast, shipped cheaply, and survive the fury of nature and of war. The Navy's Bureau of Yards and Docks sent out an urgent call. They needed a structure that could be mass-produced in America, shipped in pieces, and reassembled anywhere from the beaches of Guadalcanal to the deserts of North Africa. It had to weigh less than a jeep, survive monsoons and stand firm under bomb blasts. No foundations, no concrete, no fancy carpentry, a nearly impossible list of demands. But if there's one thing American engineers had in abundance in 1942, it was audacity. The team looked for inspiration, and they didn't have to go far. Back in the First World War, the British had built something called the Nissen hut. It was a clever semicircular shelter made of corrugated iron sheets. It worked well enough in the muddy fields of Europe, quick to build, cheap and strong. But for the Pacific, it was too heavy, too hot, and far too dependent on materials like timber and concrete, luxuries that island warfare couldn't afford. So, the Americans decided to reinvent it from the ground up. In early 1942, a team of architects, engineers, and naval officers gathered at a small naval base in Rhode Island, Quonset Point. That name would soon become famous around the world. Their mission was simple, but monumental. Design the perfect portable shelter. The group included minds from the George A. Fuller Company and the Strand Steel Corporation, experts in prefabricated steel buildings, and within weeks, the sketches began to take shape. A half-cylinder of corrugated steel, 8 feet high, 16 feet wide with a simple metal skeleton. No heavy beams, no complex joints, just panels, bolts, and a dream of simplicity. The secret weapon of the Quonset hut wasn't hidden in fancy materials or clever gadgets. It was geometry. The curved half-cylinder arch was an ancient idea, the same principle that had held up Roman aqueducts for centuries. An arch spreads force evenly. It doesn't resist the wind, and it flows with it. When a typhoon struck, the wind rolled right over the Quonset like water over a pebble. When bombs fell nearby, the curved steel absorbed shock waves better than flat walls ever could. It was an engineer's poetry, elegance through necessity. The designers had one unbreakable rule. If a man could drive a truck, he could build a Quonset hut. No training manuals thicker than a few pages, no power tools, no skilled labor. Each piece was small enough to lift by hand. Each panel was marked and numbered. With 4 men, a wrench, and a day's sunlight, a bare patch of dirt could turn into a fully standing building, complete with doors, windows, and even a vented roof. No cement, no nails, just bolts, steel, and human hands. Of course, theory and reality rarely shake hands easily. The first prototypes were assembled on the base, and they failed spectacularly. Condensation dripped from the ceiling like rain. The interior became an oven under tropical sun. And when heavy wind hit, the structure howled like a pipe organ. But every failure brought improvement. Engineers added ventilation louvers, better insulation, and zinc-coated fasteners. They replaced wooden floors with steel frames or bare earth, and soon they had something remarkable. A shelter that could stand up to 75-mile-an-hour winds, tropical heat, and weeks of monsoon rain. Soldiers began calling it the Iron Tent. By mid-1943, Quonset huts were rolling off assembly lines across the United States. Steel factories in Pennsylvania, Ohio, and New York churned out the curved panels day and night. Each hut could be packed into a wooden crate, stacked on a train, shipped to the coast, and loaded onto transport ships heading to the Pacific. In the jungles of the Solomon Islands, in the deserts of North Africa, in the snows of Alaska, everywhere American troops went, the Quonset followed. They became mess halls, hospitals, workshops, chapels, and sleeping quarters. The hut wasn't just shelter, it was home. Ask any veteran who lived in one, and they'll tell you the Quonset hut had a personality. In the rain it sang. In the heat it shimmered. At night, when the lamps glowed through the thin steel skin, the huts looked like rows of glowing lanterns across the base. Inside, soldiers pinned up letters, hung laundry, carved names into the door frames. Some joked it felt like living inside a soup can. Others said it was the safest place they'd ever been. When the war ended, America was left with a surplus of nearly 170,000 huts. They were sold off for pennies on the dollar, and that's where the second life of the Quonset began. College campuses used them as classrooms and dorms. Farmers turned them into barns and workshops. Families converted them into houses. They popped up in small towns, on highways and across the American landscape. Silent, silver echoes of the war that had built them. Even today, you can still find them, weathered, rusted, but standing. Some are antique stores, some are homes, others just shells. But every curve tells a story of resilience and ingenuity. The Quonset hut didn't just solve a wartime problem. It showed the world what could happen when design, necessity, and practicality met on equal ground. Its DNA lives on in modern prefabricated homes, in disaster relief shelters, even in designs for lunar habitats. Because at its heart, the Quonset hut wasn't about steel or bolts. It was about people, about creating safety and stability wherever chaos reigned. When you look at a Quonset hut today, its arch still catching the light of the setting sun, it's easy to overlook the genius behind it. But those curves carried the hopes of soldiers far from home, the skill of engineers who refused to fail, and the endurance of an idea that simplicity can sometimes save the world. So the next time you see one, tucked behind a barn, standing guard at an old airfield, take a moment to imagine the sound of hammers, the smell of wet earth, and the laughter of men who built them. Because that humble little hut wasn't just a building, it was a symbol of ingenuity, endurance, and the human will to endure.